We are starting today on page 726 with Robert Browning. In his dramatic monologue titled My Last Duchess. In a dramatic monologue, first of all, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is one person speaking, but it's like an act in a play. It's one person speaking to somebody else that we never hear in the dramatic monologue, and this applies to all dramatic monologues. The speaker inadvertently or accidentally reveals or betrays something about his character that he probably would rather not reveal or betray. Okay? He doesn't do it, or she doesn't do it overtly, doesn't obviously do it intentionally. Okay? And we'll talk about what the speaker reveals when we get to the end of the poem. Now, it has a little, not a subtitle, a location given, Ferrara. And you got a footnote at the bottom of that. This is in the poem, okay? In the 16th century, the Duke of this Italian city, that is the city of Ferrara, arranged to marry a second time after the mysterious death of his very young first wife. All right? The photo there is a photo of Robert Browning. So, notice how this begins. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Okay, so what does that last Duchess imply? Notice it's not, that's my previous Duchess. Nor is it, that's my first Duchess. It's, that's my last Duchess. Last kind of implies, I'm not saying that it necessarily means this, it kind of implies she's not the first. Okay? It might be she is. I'm just saying there's a possibility that it implies she's not the first. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Frau Pandolf, not a real painter, okay, but the speaker, or excuse me, the poet Browning is creating this fictitious world as if he is a real painter, all right? So, like he worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her? So wherever they are, there's some kind of seating arrangement. Let's look at her. I said Frau Pandolf by design. In other words, I did that intentionally. He's name dropping. For never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. And seemed as they would ask me if they durst, how such a glance came there. So, nobody else gets to see this painting unless he pulls the curtain and shows it to them. All right? And he says, nobody's ever read that countenance unless I allow them to. And none see the earnest glance. But to me, they turn as if they would ask if they dare, that's the durst, how such a glance came there. We don't know what the glance is yet. It's going to be implied a little bit later on. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Notice, have we heard anybody else say anything? No. The speaker is reading into the auditor's mind what the auditor thinks, or what the speaker thinks the auditor thinks, the person listening. 'Twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek. What is meant possibly by the spot of joy in her cheek?
Blushing.
She's blushing. Notice what the speaker has told us, though. What's causing the blushing? Or let me rephrase that. what's not causing the blushing. 'Twas not her husband's presence only that made her blush. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much. Or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. So the first one is a bit of a come on. The mantle lies over your wrist too much. Show me some skin. Pull the mantle up a little bit. Okay? That's one thing that could possibly cause her to blush. And the other thing is, paint can never reproduce the beauty and the tonal changes in your skin. He's flattering her. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought. And cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. He's making small talk. He's putting her at ease. Any photographer will tell you, if you're doing a photo shoot, you need to put your subject at ease. You got to get them to loosen up, okay? That's right. What Frau Pandolf is attempting to do as a painter. So, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. Too soon made glad, too easily impressed. What is that implying about her? She's easily pleased. If she's easily pleased, then what is her physical reaction to that? The blushing, the smiling. Okay? She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Notice, she liked whatever she looked on. I don't think the poet would say that about this room. Outside, the beauty of spring. Okay? He's going to give us several examples of the kinds of things she looked on that brought her joy. What his point is, everything brings her joy. In one sense, you could say she is a very innocent person in the good understanding of innocence. It's like she turns around like a child with wonder at everything that the child sees. Okay? So, she liked where she looked on, her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one. That is, everything she viewed was one, meaning it was something that brought her joy. Okay? And he's going to give examples. My favor at her breast. That's talking about a jewel, or like a brooch or a necklace. That thing that she hung around her, that, okay, is one thing. The dropping of the daylight in the west, sunset. The bough of cherries, some officious fool broke in the orchard for her. It's a third thing. The white mule she rode with around the terrace. A fourth thing. All and each. That is, all of these together, and each of them individually did what? Would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. Okay, so notice what those four things were and which one he listed first. My favor at her breast, that is, the jewelry I've given her, and the sunset, he doesn't control that. The bough of cherries, that is a broken branch of cherries off a tree that some officious fool, officious means somebody who is kind of fulfilling an obligation or a duty. That is, this fool, probably meaning a servant, thought she likes cherries. I'll get her some cherries. Okay? The mule, they all do this. She thanked men. Good. Why exclamation? That's a virtue. Thanking people is a sign of courtesy. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of good manners. Okay? But thanks somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. What is he just revealed. A little bit of. So, how did he gift her a 900 years old name? She married him. She took his last name. What's he saying? I can trace my line back 900 years. I can trace my name back 900 years. I gave her that when she married me. And she equates that with what? With anybody's gift. She takes the same pleasure and joy in my name being married to me as she does with the bowl of cherries. Why does he tell us that? I don't mean intentionally, because I don't think he's intentionally saying something. He's unintentionally, subconsciously revealing something. What runs through this guy? Jealousy. Bad jealousy. Okay? Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Notice it's a trifle. That is, my pointing out she takes pleasure in this as well as in my name. It's a trifle. It's something small. If it's a trifle, it's insignificant, right? How insignificant is it? He brought it up. If he brings it up, it's not really a trifle. That's why he says, who'd stoop to blame? What do you have to do if you stoop? You bend over. And you bend over, what do? You lower yourself to somebody else's level. That's humbling. Okay? Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such a one. How do you make your will clear to someone? What did Polonius say to his son about getting into an argument? Don't, but if you do, get into it in such a way that that person never challenges you again. Okay? So if you had such a will to make your will quite clear to such a one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, why disgust? Why not just say, irks, bothers me? Because what's the difference between bothering and disgusting? The one's like at the end of the spectrum. Bothering, somewhere in the middle. Just this or that in you disgust me. Here you miss, there exceed the mark. That is, you go overboard. And if she let herself be lessoned so, to be taught, nor plainly set her wits to yours, that is, opposed you, forsooth, and made excuse, that is, oh no, that's not what I meant. She comes up with some probably good excuse. Even then would be some stooping. That is, if you even brought it up to her, that would be stooping. And I choose never to stoop. Why not? If he has to bring it up to her, what does he have to do, metaphorically? He has to bow to her not realizing what she's doing. And when I say bow, it means he has to bring it up to her. To him, that is an act of stooping. Why? This is a basic problem between men and women. Because she should already understand that. She should already know how she's, quote unquote, feeling him. Okay? And he chooses never to stoop. Oh, she smiled. No doubt. Whenever I passed her. It's almost like the person listening is kind of, buddy, you're a little overboard here. I mean, you're a little harsh. No, she smiled when I passed her. But who passed without much the same smile? Now, he doesn't mean the question literally. Who? Give me names. He means everyone she passed, she gave the same smile to. Why? Because she's sleeping with everyone? No. Because she values each and every person, and as well, probably based upon what we're told, all the stuff you see in the world. She takes complete and utter joy in each thing. But who passed without much the same smile? This grew, that is, it continued. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. What does I gave commands mean? Told her to stop? What happened after he gave commands? Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. What else might the I gave commands mean? She stopped smiling forever. He had his wife killed. He's got the portrait of her. Whenever he wants to see her and that little smile, he can pull the curtain back. There she stands as if alive. Will it please you rise? In other words, let's get up. We'll meet, and now we get the rest of the poem and find out why the Duke is speaking to this guy. Okay? See, the dramatic monologue doesn't work unless you get this kind of reveal, resolution, so to speak, somewhere in it. If it finished with just, who passed without much the same smile, this grew, I gave commands, all smiles stopped together, there she stands as if alive, we would just be left with this big question mark. Okay? Now we find out the rest of the story. Will it please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, the count your master's known munificence, that is, generosity of wealth, is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. What does that mean? No just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. What's a dowry? We talked about it with Hamlet. Hamlet gave Ophelia a plague for her dowry if she gets married. Okay? He's talking about what kind of dowry? The dowry a man receives from the bride/bride's father when he marries her. So what is being discussed? A marriage. This person has been seemingly sent to catch the Duke or to bring the Duke downstairs so that the Duke may meet this person's boss, his master. For what purpose? To negotiate the dowry. The dowry, the master's daughter will bring to the marriage with this Duke. Okay? There stands my last Duchess. Of mine for dowry we disallowed. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. But I don't really want any money. I'm a rich Duke. All I want is the beautiful young woman. Look at the next sentence, or the next clause. Nay, we'll go down together, sir. Why does it begin with nay? Is it because the other person has said something? Nope. What's the other person done? Seemingly gotten up to get downstairs before the Duke does. Why? Flashing, warning red lights. He wants to, probably, warn his master, you don't want to marry your daughter to this guy. Why not? If he did this once, what's the likelihood? He'll do it again, If he did this once, because of what? Assume for the moment that he did have his wife killed. Okay? I'm not saying that that's the only reason. Just saying, assume for a moment. If he had her killed, what was the cause? Why did he have her killed? Because she didn't have eyes only for him, because she didn't smile only at him, because she didn't value the things he did / gave to her more than everybody else's things. All of that's true, which tells us what ultimately about him, other than his raging jealousy. People who are jealous are often also what? Why are they jealous? They're insecure. An inferiority complex of some kind. Okay? Nay, we'll go down together, sir. Notice Neptune, though. Taming a seahorse, thought a rarity. Klaus of Innsbruck, cast in bronze for me. What is he talking about as he makes his way down the stairs? You've got things on the wall, you've got this painting. Apparently there is some kind of niche in the wall where he has this statue that Klaus of Innsbruck created for him. This is his, artwork. His last wife is up there. Indicating what, possibly? Maybe he looks at women as works of art. Talk about objectifying. This is completely objectifying. What's the nice thing about a literal painting, the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting probably in the world? What do we never know about Mona Lisa? Why she's smiling. Who's she smiling at? Is she smiling at the painter, Da Vinci? What's going on? We'll never know. We'll never know what's going on in her mind. Why? Because she's frozen like that. It's almost like this is what this guy wants to do with his wives, plural. Okay? So what did he reveal? He revealed he's jealous. He revealed probably that he's got some insecurities. He revealed, I think, and the way most scholars read it is he's willing to kill in order to preserve his sense of rightness. Okay, go from there to 743. This is, you've probably heard of him before, Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. We're not going to spend long on this because we can't. It's a nonsense poem. Lewis Carroll wrote, Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass. Anybody know anything about him? I don't remember if your book says anything in brief introduction. He was a professor of geometry at Oxford. Okay, so if you're teaching geometry, if you're a geometrician, what has to work up here? What has to govern up here? Logic, reason, rationality. And yet something like Jabberwocky and Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass are all about breaking logic. Okay? J.R.R. Tolkien, in an essay he wrote on fairy stories, said Carroll could write the way he did because he was so logical. Everything in this poem is logical. It doesn't make any sense, but it is perfectly logical. And what I mean by that is it uses all the parts of speech correctly. Even though he makes up words that we have no idea what they mean, they work in terms of being nouns, adjectives, verbs, objects, predicates, the whole 9 yards. It's probably written for the beauty of the sound, okay? Or to play with sound. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toves, to gyre and gimble in the wabe, or gyre and gimble, whichever. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe. You can't explain what that means. Something was brillig, whatever that is, and there are things called slithy toves, Slithy is obviously an adverb because of the E ending, and then there's toes, whatever they are. Did gyre and gimble, those are two verbs in the wave. Don't know what gyre and gimble mean. A gyre is something that spins like this, it revolves like a gyroscope. Okay? All mimsy were the borogoves and the momraths outgrade. Momraths are some noun thing, like an animal. Beware the Jabberwock, my son. Now that makes perfectly good sense, other than not knowing what a Jabberwock is. The claws that bite, the claws that catch. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and son, the frumiest Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought, so rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. So whoever the he is standing next to this tree and thinking, probably about whatever the thing is they're hunting. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. Burbled, probably a mixture of bubbled and gurgled. Okay? One of the things Carroll does is he creates what are called portmanteau words. And these are words where you take part of one word and jam it up against part of another word. I don't think I've done it nearly as much this semester, but man, I could tell you instances over the last 5 or 10 years, my brain's going a lot faster than my mouth, or the other way around, and I'll start one word and I'm already at the next, and I just put them right to each other, and usually don't make any sense. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snickersnack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. Galumphing, probably galloping, and I don't know what the umph part is, okay? And hast thou slain the Jabberwock, come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjeste calucle, he chortled in his joy. Chortled, chuckled, snorted. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toes, etc. Write a paper on what that means, drop some acid and try to figure it out. I have no idea what he's doing other than playing with sound. Go to another ode. We did ode on a Grecian urn last week. This is Ode to the West Wind, 795. This is Percy Bysshe Shelley, who died just a few years older than Keats. He and Keats were good friends. This is the Shelley of Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. This is Mary Shelley's husband. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Okay. This is another ode. Notice you've got the definition for ode here at the top of 795. Serious topic, formal tone, but no set pattern. Okay. A wild west wind, thou breath, west wind. West it's coming from the west, blowing to the east. A wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Yellow and black, pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed, the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow, her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain in hill, wild spirit which are moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. So the speaker is addressing the wind. And the wind, we're told, is the breath of autumn's being. The wind is the soul, so to speak, of the fall. Brits use autumn. Americans generally use fall to describe the season. So what do we see happening in this stanza? We see what the wind blows. Seeds from trees, okay? It chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds. That is, the seeds go, they land on the ground, they get covered up where they lie cold and low until spring comes. Okay? Spring doesn't blow the seeds again. Spring does what? Spring sends a different wind from warmer climes that warms up the earth that allows the seeds to, we're not told yet. It's implied. Okay? So the speaker concludes, wild spirit. Why is it wild? Cannot be contained, cannot be controlled. Which are moving everywhere, destroyer, scattering the seeds, and preserver, burying them, so to speak, in the ground. Hear, O hear. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed. That is, the clouds are shed like the leaves on earth, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. Angels of rain and lightning, these are coming from the wind. There are spread on the blue surface of thine airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad. In Greek mythology, a frenzied worshiper of Dionysius. Frenzied implies a worshiper of Dionysius, their hair would stand on end. Well, go out in a really bad electrical storm, and your hair is going to all stand on end because of static electricity. Even from the dim verge of the horizon, that is, the point of the horizon, to the zenith height, straight up, the locks of the approaching storm. Thou dirge of the dying year. Dirge. What's a dirge? It's the music that's played at funerals. Okay? It's sorrowful. It's gut-wrenching. Thou dirge of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre. This closing night, speaker's probably implying, night is coming, night is setting, okay? And it's going to be like the speaker and everybody enclosed in this night are being buried. Will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might of vapors, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, hear. He's describing one heck of a rainstorm, a massive storm coming in, that he's saying is going to be the end of this day, and metaphorically, the end of life. Thou who didst waken from his summer dreams the blue Mediterranean, where he lay, lulled by the coil of his crystalline streams, beside a pumice isle in Baez Bay, and saw in sleep old palaces and towers quivering within the waves' intenser day, all overgrown with azure moss and flowers, so sweet the sense faints picturing them. Thou for whose path the Atlantic's level powers, okay, because it can't rise up against them, cleave themselves into chasms. You've probably seen footage, you can get on YouTube and watch footage of the Atlantic when a massive storm hits. I don't mean hurricane, just a regular storm, and you'll see these crests, okay, and valleys of the waves. That's what he's talking about. While far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods which wear the sapless foliage of the ocean, know thy voice, and suddenly grow gray with fear, and tremble and despoil themselves. Oh, hear. What often ends up on beaches after big storms at seas? Seaweed. The storm is what causes, the speaker is suggesting, the seaweed to unroot, okay, and be despoiled. Notice, each stanza finishes, oh, hear. The speaker is calling out to the wind. If I were a dead leaf, thou mightest bear. Okay, now the speaker is really addressing the wind. If I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power, and share the impulse of thy strength, only less free than thou, uncontrollable, How would it be only less free than the wind? Because the waves are bounded, right? They're bounded by the shores. The wind, nothing stops it. Nothing blocks it. If even I were as in my boyhood, it could be the comrade of thy wanderings over heaven, as then, that is, like a boy, the speaker is metaphorically, or at least in his mind, going back to being a little boy, telling us what he did. As then, when to outstrip thy skyey speed scarce seemed a vision, running like through a meadow, trying to run faster than the wind. I would ne'er have striven as thus with thee in prayer in my sore need. Now we get to the heart. The speaker is striving with the wind. How? In prayer. He's praying to the wind. Why? He has a sore need. He has a great need. Oh, lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. In other words, blow me, O wind, wherever you want to. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. Here on earth, life is suffering. Take me up into your power. Because if you're up into that power, notice, can the leaf oppose the wind? Nope. Can a cloud? Nope. Can the sea? No, not really. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one too like thee. What's the one too like thee? It's the speaker. I am like you, O wind. What's the speaker saying? I also am, kind of like in my essence, uncontrolled, uncontrollable, except the heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed me. What's the heavy weight of hours? Age. Age. Wearing me down to the ground. And bowed one too like thee, colon, what is like thee? Tameless, swift, proud. Make me thy lyre. What's a lyre? You got a gloss, sound is produced on an Aeolian harp. You can have the kind of lyre that you play with your hands, or you have that Aeolian harp that is lifted up and the wind blows through and makes music. Okay? Make me thy lyre. That is, blow through me. Let me become the voice of your music, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? What might the speaker's leaves be that fall like leaves in a forest? Hair. When do you start to lose your hair, especially men, but women also? As you age. The older and older you get, the more likely you are to lose your hair. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both the forest and me a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Why in sadness? If it's autumnal, what comes after autumn? Winter, which symbolizes what? Death. That's the sadness. I'm almost spent. I'm almost done. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Impetuous, rash, it just goes wherever and does whatever it wants. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. What are the speaker's dead thoughts? Probably the speaker's poems. Drive these, he says, over the universe, like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. And by the incantation of this verse, the rhyme scheme in that kind of makes it chant-like. Scatter as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks. Remember when we talked about, whether it was in class or on one of the video lectures, those Winter Sundays by Robert Hayden, and he talks about his father, or the speaker talks about the father starting new fires from banked fires, those embers that are still there in the morning. He says, scatter the ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Ashes and sparks implies some of my words are dead and cold, like ashes. However, sparks are what? They're glowing. They will give off heat. They will cause new flame. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. Be through my lips, that is, make me your trumpet. And blow what? A prophecy. What's the prophecy? O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Now, is this just a poem about fall, winter, and spring? No, it's not. What's the speaker really talking about? Death and rebirth. If winter comes, what comes after winter? Spring. If the leaves get scattered, if the thoughts get scattered, and they get laying dormant, what will happen? They will rise again, or they will give birth. That's the prophecy. The speaker is saying, death isn't the end. That's the beginning of a new birth. Okay? Rest Wind, 871, Road Not Taken, by Robert Frost. You might be familiar with this. You might have heard it by the title, The Road Less Traveled. There's a book written by a psychologist called The Road Less Traveled, and it's essentially about this poem as a metaphor for life. Okay? Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the others just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. In both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And we pause there. So what's the image? You're walking through the woods, you're going down this trail, and all of a sudden, it branches in two directions. The Road Not Taken, okay? Notice that title. The other title I mentioned just a moment ago by M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. That's not right. That's how people often interpret the poem. They interpret the poem to mean the person speaking takes the road others don't travel. To use another metaphor, he marches to the beat of his own drummer and doesn't listen to everybody else. He's a nonconformist, in other words. Okay? But that's not what the poem says. Look what it says. It's a yellow wood, first of all. Implying what? Are the trees outside today yellow or green? They're green. Why? It's spring. It's rebirth, new life. Yellow implies fall. The leaves are losing all their chlorophyll. They're dying. The trees are going to go dormant. Usually that is taken to mean this is the latter half of life. And sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. I would. I stood there for a long time. I looked on one, I looked on the other. Pretty clear. To see where it bent in the other growth. And took the other just as fair. And having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. So he looks down this one and says, no, I'm going to go this one. Why? Because it's grassy and it wanted, meaning it lacks wear. The implication is fewer people have taken this path. Implication is. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Why? Well, if you read the poem the way it's most often read, this is a metaphor for life. And the decisions I've made in my life are not the decisions any one of you will make, just like the decisions you make in your lives are not the decisions any of the rest of us will make. Every decision we make is totally individual, totally independent, totally not the same as others. Even if that decision is, at some point in your life, to get married. Why? Because all the factors that go into that decision you make will not be the same factors as the ones I had. Some of them might be similar. Okay? So, both that morning equally lay black, and leaves no step had trodden black. Others can't make your decisions for you. I kept the first for another day. Really? How often do you make a decision and then you get a quote unquote take it back? Can you ever take it back? No, you can't. You make another decision. That might kind of somehow bring you back to a starting point. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. That is, knowing that if I take this direction, it's going to do that, and it's going to do that, and it's going to do that, and every time you take one, what happens to the other possibilities? They're gone. They're just gone. Totally gone. Okay? So as he keeps going, he thought, I won't be able to go back to this point because that point no longer exists. Then we get the final stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Notice the verb tense. I shall be, that is, it's like the speaker is currently here. And I'm going to be telling it here. How's the speaker going to get from here to here? We don't know. I shall be telling this with a sigh. What's the this? Everything that came to this point. The first three stanzas. Somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. That's where M. Scott Peck gets the title for his book. Okay? But notice, it's only when he is ages and ages hence that the speaker will know what? The road I took was the one less traveled. Didn't know it when did this. And then you have the last line. Well, you have the first line of that last stanza. He's going to be telling it how? With a sigh. He's not going to be telling it with a grin. He's not going to be telling it with a smile. He's not going to be telling it with joy, but with a sigh. What does a sigh suggest? Assume you get married. Are you going to be saying, and you have a wonderful, happy marriage, and you die wonderfully happy, you die at the same time, kind of a thing. Are you going to be telling others just before then, with a sigh, that you married the perfect companion? No. You're going to be saying that with glee, with joy, with satisfaction. Sighs imply regret, sorrow. So I shall be telling this with a sigh. I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. How? Wrong choice? The only way you're going to tell it with a sigh is if there is regret involved. Wrong choice often does what? Leads to more wrong choices. Okay? So it's a beautifully, richly ambiguous poem, which is what all poems should be. You can read it a number of ways. We have 4 minutes. Let's see, what do we have next? Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. We can do that one in 4 minutes. Which is on page 881. Another frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. Short, simple, declarative. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Notice, no punctuation, just read it all without any pauses. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So, we're told a story. Speaker on horseback, riding through some woods, when the darkest evening of the year, that's usually read to mean the first day of winter. Why? Because it's the longest night of the year. That's why it's the darkest night. Whose woods these are, I think I know, that is, but his house is in the village. I'm not near the village. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods, what? Look at the verb phrase. Fill up with snow. What does that mean, to fill up with snow? Does that mean you're just stopping there for 5 minutes? Because it's just snowing. Fill up implies what? You stop as it snows and snows and snows and snows. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake. A little bit more detail. So there's woods and a frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. How do we know the little horse must think it queer? Because it shakes its shoulders. Why? He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. Why does he shake his harness bells? Because he's cold? Well, if they are sitting there, what is happening? The snow is falling down on the horse, and after it melts for a little bit, it starts to accumulate on the horse's head, neck, shoulders, rump, because they're just sitting still. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Easy wind, gentle breeze. What kind of sound does snow make as it falls? Heavy, thick, downy, like flakes. None. What is that? Are those two lines supposed to do? They are lulling. They're like, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. Why the but? But always implies what? A contradiction, a change in attitude, a change in direction of some kind. I love you, but, it's the but, that's the knife, okay? But I have promises to keep. What does the but imply about the previous lines? The speaker wants to stay right here. and just watch the woods fill up. But I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and then it gets repeated. What are the miles to go before I sleep, and what are the promises to keep? Obligations and responsibilities to other. Why does the person mention before I sleep? What is sleep a metaphor of? Death. A lot of people, me definitely included, think this speaker just wants to lay down in these downy woods like a big, comfortable bed made of down and go to sleep. You know how cold kills you? You don't sit there and shiver to death. It starts at your extremities. Read Jack London's To Build a Fire, short story set in the Yukon. Okay? It starts at your extremities, and you gradually fall asleep because your body is dying from the ends up. And by the time it reaches your brain, you've already fallen asleep and have become unconscious. Okay? It's like falling asleep. Okay, we'll stop there. I put up a quiz today. It's due, I can't remember, either Friday or Sunday. Can't remember. The quiz goes through, it says on it, poems through April 19th. Okay? Most of the questions about the poems are just author to title. It does include some of the literary terms and things that were gone over in those first two lectures. Okay, that's all. And there's quiz due tonight, or was it last night? Due tonight, thank you. I sent out a reminder. Have a good day. Enjoy.